how do we become the people we are? I mean, it's one of the biggest questions out there, right? Today, we're going to look at the different psychological roadmaps that try to chart that incredible, complicated journey from our very first moments to our last.
No, really, just stop and think about it for a second. From the moment you were born to you, right now, listening to this, what mix of forces and choices and pure luck shaped the person you are today? It's this huge, fascinating puzzle.
And the thing is, psychology doesn't give us just one single answer. Instead, it offers up a bunch of different maps. Each one shows a unique path, a totally different perspective on the landscape of a human life. So, come on, let's unfold the first one and see where it leads.
All right, our first map takes us way, way back. We're looking at the genetic blueprint we got from our ancestors and how it guides our behavior for one big primary reason: survival. So, the key idea here is Darwin's theory of natural selection. It basically says that any psychological traits that helped our ancestors survive, like a healthy fear of things that could eat you or that powerful instinct to protect your kids, well, those traits were way more likely to get passed down. This whole perspective suggests our minds are kind of like living artifacts, shaped by challenges from the super distant past.
And check this out. This is what makes that abstract idea so real. That's Konrad Lorenz with his baby geese. He showed that they are literally hardwired to imprint on, basically form an unbreakable bond with, the first moving thing they see when they hatch. For these little guys, it happened to be him. It's a perfect example of a survival instinct that's just etched right into their biology.
Okay, so from our shared evolutionary history, our next map dives deep into our unique, personal past. We're shifting from the blueprint of our entire species to the hidden architecture inside an individual's mind.
And you really can't talk about mapping the inner world without bringing up Sigmund Freud. His idea, which was totally revolutionary and, pretty controversial, was that our core personality gets forged in the fire of early childhood as we wrestle with these deep, unconscious drives for pleasure and aggression.
So Freud laid out these 5 psychosexual stages, and each one is focused on a different source of pleasure. The wild idea was that if a kid's needs weren't met right during one of these stages, maybe they got too little or even too much of what they needed, they could get fixated. It's like a part of their mental energy gets stuck there, and that could end up influencing their personality for the rest of their life. Like an unresolved oral fixation might pop up later as an adult who's always chewing on pens. Now, one of Freud's students, a guy named Erik Erikson, he took these ideas and ran in a whole new direction. He totally agreed that childhood was critical, but he argued that our development doesn't just stop there. He was all about what he called ego identity. That's our conscious sense of who we are. And he said it's shaped by our social experiences across our entire life. See, Erikson saw our whole life as this series of 8 stages, and each one has its own special social challenge or crisis. And if you navigate that conflict successfully, you build a core strength, or what he called a virtue. So for a baby, it's learning to trust the world, and that gives them hope. For a teenager, it's figuring out your identity versus being confused. And in our final years, it's about looking back on life with a sense of integrity to gain wisdom.
All right, let's pull out our next map. This one sees the mind not as a place full of hidden conflicts, but more like an active construction site, where we are literally building our understanding of the world one brick at a time.
This is the brilliant work of Jean Piaget. He didn't see children as just empty containers waiting to be filled with information. Nope. He saw them as little scientists, constantly exploring, experimenting, and actively trying to make sense of everything around them. He laid out these 4 stages of how we think. We start by learning through our senses, then we get language, then we learn to think logically about real, concrete things, and finally, we can start to tackle abstract ideas. Each stage builds the foundation for the next one.
Our fourth map changes the game completely. Instead of looking inside our minds or deep into our genes, it suggests that who we are is mostly just a product of what we learn directly from the world around us.
So this perspective gives us 2 really powerful ways we learn. First, there's classical conditioning, which is just a fancy way of saying we learn by association. If 2 things happen together enough times, our brain just links them up. Then there's operant conditioning, which is learning from the consequences. We tend to do more of the things we get rewarded for, and we stop doing the things we get punished for. It's simple, but it's incredibly powerful. And this is the perfect, if a little unsettling, example of classical conditioning. In a very famous and, let's be honest, pretty controversial experiment, a psychologist named John Watson showed this baby, little Albert, a fluffy white rat.
Albert was scared of it at all. But then, Watson started making a loud, scary noise every single time the rat appeared. Pretty soon, just seeing the rat was enough to make little Albert cry. He had learned to associate that harmless rat with pure fear.
But hold on, what about all the things we learn without getting a reward or a punishment? A guy named Albert Bandura pointed this out. He argued that a huge part of how we develop is just by watching and imitating other people, a process he called modeling. You know, monkey see, monkey do, it's as simple as that.
So, let's recap. We've got our evolutionary blueprint, our hidden inner world, our mental construction site, and our environmental learning. That's a lot of different maps. So, the big question is, which one is the right one?
We have the evolutionary lens, which sees us as a product of our ancient past. We've got Freud and Erikson, who are busy mapping our inner emotional and social worlds. Then there's Piaget, showing us how our minds are literally built, step by step. And finally, the learning theories, which highlight the incredible power of our environment.
So what's the real answer? Well, it turns out asking which map is right is kind of the wrong question. The truth is, each theory is like a different kind of flashlight being aimed at the exact same person. One light shows the ancient stone of our biology, another reveals the detailed paint of our experiences. To really, truly see the whole picture, you need all of them.
So, as you go on with your day, think about your own story for a minute. When you look at your habits, your beliefs, who you are, which one of these maps helps you make sense of it all? What parts of you were inherited? What parts were learned? And what parts did you decide to build all on your own?